And hit record. All right. Well, welcome everybody. This week we are talking with Miss Ronnie Rock. So, Ronnie, you're awesome. So, tell us about yourself. Where I was just asking her before she came, because she travels like all over the planet, like literally all the time. So, I'm like, are you even in the country? Like, where actually are you physically right now?
I am. I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth area of Texas, which some people think that it could be its own planet. But or, but I am in the lovely United States of America. You'll find that I don't call the whole thing. I could get on a whole tangent about what we call places, but I do not refer to myself as a like an American as if somehow the United States of America holds all the power of that name, because I have incredible friends who live in Guatemala and they are also Americans. And I have amazing friends that live in Toronto and they are also Americans. And so I'm few things am I a stickler on, but I am such a stickler on, if you're from the US, say that you're from the US. Don't say I'm from America, because you know what? America starts way top at north and it goes all the way down to south. And then there's some central stuck in there too. So a huge population. America means that you live in a really big entire hemisphere, like two hemispheres. So there you go.
Good point.
My tiny ranch. So yes, I'm in the US right now. But I have already this year, I have been in Guatemala and I'll be back in Guatemala and then we'll be in India and then a little bit of time in Eastern Europe. So it is an honor. The reason why I do that is not because I'm exceptionally rich and famous and I just jaunt everywhere. It is actually a part of my vocation. I'm in charge of marketing and special initiatives for a global nonprofit called Orphan Outreach. And so, as part of my job, I have had over time and still get to travel internationally, both to do storytelling as well as to lead groups of individuals who may be interested in what is happening in another country and they want to go in an environment where they can learn and can I always talk about finding the right posture of service for to go into another country, not to go in as a fixer of things, but to go in as a supporter. So that is what I get to do. In fact, if you follow me on Instagram, that was my post yesterday, was about um, the people in this world who broke open my heart
Mhm.
for the right kind of care. And so, but that is what I get to do. And in addition to that, um, I'm a mentor, but I'm not a formal mentor. I keep thinking about maybe I should formalize that job description, but I do a lot of mentoring for young writers or folks that are just dabbling with putting their words out into the world. Um, and then also, I am honored to have authored a few books, both traditionally and self-published. I've worked with two traditional imprints, one in an anthology and one is it's just me authoring, and then have also self-published. Love to teach, um, love to encourage and stuff. Exhortation is my number one spiritual gift. So I do love walking long roads with people. And then I'm a wife and a mom and a Gigi and a trusted lap to a brand new fuzzball named Eloise. Um, and if you come to my house, you come to Casa Rock, the Wi-Fi is free, the food is good, and there's always space. So if you're ever in the Austin area, you just need a place to hide, come to my house. Please come to my house. That's a legitimate invitation.
Very fun. I love it. I have to take you up on that one of these days. It's a long drive for me though. So we're talking this week about our relationship with publishers. And you've obviously had some experience with that. So you've been traditionally published a couple times, and you said you've done some self-publishing also, right? So I love the talk that, or the title that you chose for this is defining the relationship. And it reminds me of like those really awkward days way back, in dating and stuff, where you had to have like, we called it the DTR, like the defining the relationship talk. Like, okay, are we like dating or are we just friends? Like, what is this thing that we're doing? But so why I find it fascinating that you chose that as the title for this, as it relates to our relationship with publishers. So what made you pick that title?
I picked that title because, like a dating relationship, oftentimes when we are wanting to define the relationship, it is more than likely because we have romantical ideas of what we hope that relationship would be. It is rare that we want to have the defining the relationship talk to tell somebody you're not the person. We are like, I'm hoping that they say maybe there's more to this. And so there is such a romanticized view, right? It is it for those who, and I talk a lot about putting your words out into the world. Any of you who take the risk and you hit publish on anything from social media to a blog to Substack to whatever, or a Bible study or whatever, there is this idea, and I don't know where it came from, but there is this idea that for whatever reason, getting your words into a book, like that's the pinnacle. I want to be published. In fact, we will minimize publishing on any other platform because we'll say, no, I want to be published. And like you just hit a button. You did just publish. You are published. You have a blog, you're published. You're on Substack, you're published. Amy, you have a podcast, you are published. But instead, we're like, oh, no, 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 no. I mean, I want my words to be on pieces of paper in between cardstock, sitting on a shelf at a Barnes and Noble. And if I don't get that, then forever I will be walking the road of almost, but not quite. And so we just have this, oh, it's such a romantical view
Mhm.
of what we think publishing is. And then there's the publishing, right? Well, anybody can self-publish, which it's not easy to self-publish. It is a lot of work to do it and do it well, but we kind of stack rank the publishing piece of the puzzle, right? I know I've self-published. Or we might work with a hybrid publisher of some sort, somebody that will provide some help, but not all help, but we have to pay them that help. But then there is someone loved my words and they brought an offer and I signed the contract. And then they gave me a check because they think my books are going to sell. And so this relationship with traditional publishing, we just fawn over it. And somebody's like, do we write when we're like, check it out, I'm on Kindle? No, we don't show a picture of, I'm on Kindle uploading my book. No, we don't. But we're like, check out my contract. I just signed a contract. Oh my gosh, join my launch team because I signed a contract and I've got a book. And so we, again, have a tendency to diminish the other forms of publishing. Oh, we underneath traditional publishing. And traditional publishing is not easy. Of all of the manuscripts and all of the book proposals that go out, hoping that somebody will pay attention, the rate of book proposals that get accepted by, depending upon what you look at, right? If you're looking at more mainstream publishing houses, it's about 5 that own everything. the 5 that own about 250 imprints or places that actually print. On the Christian side, it's about 50. Now, most of those are super niche. They are niche to a denomination or niche to a particular type or facet of publishing. But all of those, if you add them up, about 2%, less than 5% that will say that somebody will say, oh my gosh, yes, I'll take it. So it's not an easy thing at all. And it is a rare thing. It's a rare thing to even have somebody read your book. So all of those are beautiful gifts for you. But it is, but that defining the relationship, the thing is, because we romanticize traditional publishing, a lot of times we can give it more credence than it deserves. And we can also put more expectations on it that it can handle. Or you might think that it's going to give us more than it's capable of. And so we want to define the relationship with traditional publishing so we can better understand how to go into a conversation with eyes wide open. We can also have a better understanding of what expectations should be of us, of the book. And then also, if the relationship in some way changes, if you don't end up with a ring on your finger, what does that mean? If you end up with a ring on your finger, but dang it, you just don't make a whole passel of babies from that initial relationship, what does it mean? And so more than anything, and this is my goal overall, is to safeguard your heart from when you're walking the road, because even putting the words out publicly, you need to safeguard your heart to follow the demands of algorithms and every genius out there that wants to tell you how to get more views and get more engagement and all of that stuff. That's all good, but it can chip away at your soul. And I just don't think enough folks, but many folks will tell you how to write a book proposal. They'll tell you how to query for an agent. They'll tell you those things, but they don't talk to you about the reality of walking the road and what kind of relationship it's going to be. And so,
why do you think it's difficult for us to talk about that? Like, why is there so much out there about how to do all the nuts and bolts and grow your platform and all the things and write a book proposal? But why is it hard to talk about like what those expectations are? What does this relationship with a publisher actually look like, and what should I expect?
this will not be an exhaustive list, but this is what I have experienced over time. I think number one, the reason why it's hard to talk about the relationship with a traditional publisher is that there is no cookie cutter format for that relationship. In fact, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this on Thursday, but I was in a writing group and several of us got contracts within about a year of each other. And so we created this safe, beautiful Voxer space where we were going to be able to walk through what was going on in our lives and be able to ask hard questions or talk about what it was like. And we found out that the individual qualities of a contract, that first of all, you can't share what's in your contract with somebody else. It is and so even like in casual conversation, somebody would say, well, guys, your publicists, are they helping you to try to do only podcasts? Or are they helping you to do also like TV shows and stuff? And somebody else would go, publicist? You have a publicist? I don't have a publicist. How did you get a publicist? And then somebody else would say, well, I'm looking for a launch team manager and I'm trying to manage my advance to pay for my launch team manager. Somebody else would say, they didn't give you one? And so then we go, oh, wow. So it's not just the terms, like financial terms of the contract. It is also what you were given as that author to get through the publishing process and get the book launched. Even those things are individual in nature. And so to even talk about those things caused more tension than
Mhm.
help, because everybody started going, oh, I wonder what's wrong with me and why I didn't get that, or why do, or it'd be the opposite, like, oh, I guess it's pretty cool that they paid for my launch manager. That's awesome. And so a part of it is just it is a complex relationship. It is also hard to know because every contract is different as far as um how many how much they're going to pay you from a percentage of sales. They The formulas that are used are not available to the public, but they are using all kinds of formulas to determine when your book should be in market, how much your book should sell for, how much your book could discount for, then how much you should be able to earn as the author, because they're also having to pay a whole bunch of other folks in addition to you with the sale of that book. And so, again, it's complex. So it's difficult to talk about freely without upsetting other folks. Also, I think it's just hard because it is a long, tedious process and it looks like a team effort. But at the end of the day, you're still alone in your office or your bedroom or wherever, sitting in front of a computer writing. And so I think that's a piece of the puzzle, is that a traditional publisher doesn't fix everything for you as a writer to be able to say, yes, here's the glorious part of everybody wants to be traditionally published because it's just delightful. You know what? It is a joy and it is a gift and it is hard. But if you talk about it publicly, about a traditional publisher, oh my gosh, what if they find what if I say something about it and then they get upset and nobody wants me? Maybe I'll end up being a pariah because I'm the one that is asking the hard questions. And so, even in doing this, I love it. It's a private community that we get to be candid with and stuff. But there's probably stuff that I'll share here that I would never post publicly. And
Are you not supposed to talk with other people? Like, I know, like when I interview authors sometimes on my podcast, like you got to be careful if they're under contract and the book hasn't come out. Like, okay, I don't know what you can share. Like, there's boundaries about what they can talk about. Um, are authors under contract also not supposed to talk about like what is included in their contract? Like, do you get a publicist? Like, I'm not supposed to tell anybody that I didn't get a publicist or I did get a publicist, or are there boundaries around that also?
there are some are written that talk about your contract. It is what they are negotiated with you is for you and you alone. It is a proprietary contract.
Mhm.
It's not for public consumption. And then other things, it is just, it may not be,
Like it.
but there is just a sense that, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, if I talk about this, I may be divulging too much because I may be then implying that that same publisher might do the same thing for somebody else. And so I might end up harming that publishing,
Mhm.
right? By making an implied promise innocently or whatever. I may not know. So there's a tendency we just don't want to talk about too much about it because if we talk, or if we talk about that it's hard, I can't tell you that it's hard. Right? I can tell you that it's hard for me, but I can't tell you that I don't really like my developmental editor. I don't like I can't say that because I say that, and especially if I put my words out into the world and I say that, what if my developmental editor sees? And then what if that gets up the food chain and then that publisher doesn't want to talk to me?
So it's
So,
complicated.
it, so you do feel, and again, I had writing groups that I was walking the road with untraditional publishing and still felt it.
Mhm.
It's still the publishing world is just, it's a lonely world. It really is. If you think about just the sheer volume of time, it's still just you and your words. And you get moments of glory. It's like, yay, it's launch. We're all so happy. And then there's the week after launch, and you're like, yeah, it's just me and my words again. They are. But now they're in book form and they need to sell. And oh God, please let them sell. Because I also have an obligation to this traditional publisher. Where if it's self-published, your obligation is to yourself and your dreams. If it is a hybrid publisher, your obligation is to yourself and the money that you spent. If it's traditional publisher, you have signed your words away. They own them. And your obligation is to help them sell your book. And you want them to sell your book, and they give you a lot of good benefits for that. They do provide a lot of support. It's not just I'm giving you my words. Oh my gosh, they are taking a real risk on you and your words. They really are. They're taking huge risk. And if they pay you a dime, that risk becomes greater, because then that advance means that you've got to pay that dime back someday.
Mhm.
That dime, that is through the sale of those books. And on Thursday, we'll even talk about, like, what does that mean? Because there are some things that you can negotiate. My agent told me there are really two things that you can negotiate, that you have the power to negotiate in traditional publishing. You have the power to negotiate your advance, and you have the power to negotiate how many books you get free of charge.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because she said, and a higher advance may feel good at the outset, but that's money that you got to pay back. And the way it's paid back is through the sale of books. And it's not through you buying books at wholesale and taking them to a church. It has to come from retail sales.
Which is
Unless you
the pressure. Mhm.
have a contract that in some way, but if you buy them at wholesale, they have only paid for the hard cost of those books.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so I think that's why it's just tricky. And it's an ongoing business relationship. And so I think people are afraid, kind of afraid to talk about what it really feels like to intertwine yourself with somebody else. It feels weird to sign a document that says your words are no longer.
Sure. Yeah. And probably kind of scary.
It feels weird to sign a document that all of a sudden turns a passion project into a business deal.
Yeah.
But there's not a whole lot of folks that are around ready to talk about even emotionally what you go through when you're making those decisions.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's really helpful, I think, to have some conversations, at least like this, where we can kind of adjust our expectations and have a more realistic view. And um, I definitely think that we can have a tendency to romanticize. I just want that publishing book deal, and then my life will be complete,
Yeah.
as soon as that
I'm
happens.
an author. And you go, actually, you author. Anytime you write something down and you share it with somebody, you have authored that. That does not mean that you have done a transactional business deal. Authoring is your words. And so we've hijacked too many words, and we're like, oh, you can only use author if you really have published a book. Oh, you can only do that if you really have. And it's heartbreaking because it robs those of us who love the creative expression of writing. It robs us of simple joys that we have by sending a meaningful message to a person or a small group of people, or to sit in front of an audience and share a meaningful message.
Definitely. So, you talked about, so you've done some self-publishing, you've done traditional publishing. What would you say are the benefits to traditional publishing? Obviously, there's pros and cons in both directions. But why would someone want to pursue traditional publishing specifically?
The benefits of traditional publishing are really the business benefits that publisher can provide. First of all, self-publishing. And if you do self-publish, there are certain things that I would always tell you to do no matter what. Which one of them is, like, get a developmental editor and a technical editor. Don't just ask your friends to read your book. But one of the things that a traditional publisher knows is that they have retail relationships, so they know where a book might sell. They know audiences. They also know every other book's going to be out there around the time you want your book to be out there. They know seasonality. They know the psychological seasons of a customer's mind. They know they are trend spotters and trend followers. They are not just looking at what's happening right now, but if you sign a contract for traditional publishing, the high likelihood your book will not come out for another 18 to 24 months. So they know what's happening. They already have predicted what's happening 2 years from now and what they think people are going to want to read. In the self-publishing world, you are sitting going, okay, I'm trying to figure out where trends are going. You're having to try to do all that research on your own to figure it out. And it's very easy to get into an echo chamber of friends and folks in a Bible study group or whatever that go, oh my gosh, this is so meaningful. These words are so incredible, but you have no idea what you're up against. And if your words you might hit publish the same day that somebody else also publishes, it gets a ton of press and it's challenging for you. So part of it is that relationship. It is that seasonal understanding and trend understanding that they bring to the table. A traditional publisher brings with them the heft of a staff.
Mm-hmm.
They bring a developmental editor whose sole purpose it is to make sure you're not rabbit trailing. That is the purpose of developmental editing. You're looking at your story from start to finish and making sure that you stay on point. And then they're bringing to bear that copy editor, that technical editor, to make sure that you haven't left the L out of public in a sentence and have embarrassed the world. So they are doing all of that. They bring art design to the table. They bring a person that does nothing but paginate on your behalf.
I don't want that job.
I don't either. And trust me, the final round of edits that you get to do is after pagination has happened. And they will tell you, if you do anything, you can't screw up. You can't add too much. You can't take away too much because pagination has happened. And so the book is
I want to mess with that.
The book is laid out, and pagination means putting the words on the pages to where they lay out properly. And oh my gosh. And it was not until pagination in my book that we realized that something had been edited out accidentally in my book that was important to be in the front of my book so you'd understand one of the 8th chapter of the book. Because I referenced it in the 8th chapter. I'm like, holy schmo. Okay. So then I had to go into this first chapter and see what I had written and then reframe the sentences with the same number of words so nothing would. But we did it. But we did it. But oh my gosh, if you've ever tried to lay out a book for self-publishing, you know how essential pagination is, but they offer that to you. So they have that heft of a production team that you are not having to carry. And so that's the benefit that they bring to the table. They also have the market's respect. They already know folks. Folks know their imprint names. And there's this incredible diversity of imprints that traditional publishing brings to the table that helps line you up with other words that feel compatible to your words. They will also put you in a calendar with things they know every other title that's competitive and titles that are compatible to yours. So they put you into the place that they feel is best for your book to be in order for it to sell. So that is the beauty of a traditional publisher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of resources that they bring to the table that either we wouldn't really want to do or we just don't have the capacity and the position to be able to do.
I don't know if folks who self-publish in particular really understand the depth of work that goes into self-publishing. And it's not easy and it's not free. Because in order for you to get people to do good things for you,
Generally have to pay them.
be an outlay somewhere, right? Of
Yeah.
time, talent, and your treasure. And so, um, and I think all of the forms of publishing, they all have a place, they all have a purpose, and used wisely, they're all wonderful. But you got to go into it all eyes wide open. You really do.
Right. Yeah, Christina said that pagination is one of the most difficult parts of self-publishing.
Isn't it? And you can go, oh, come on, Canva, fix it for me. And Canva will
Just
mock
make
you.
it pretty.
Just mock you.
Kathy was asking, do you think traditional publishers prefer to make multi-book deals more than single books? Do you have
Mm.
a feel for that one?
You know, I wonder anymore. I think the fact that if they do multiple book deals, they do have also the opportunity to lay things out over time.
Mhm.
If a multiple book deal with a new or first time author is a rare thing. Unless it is like I think Mariel Davenport, who is in writer's block, she has a variety of Bible studies and things. So it's very easy
Mhm.
guidepost to say, oh, this makes sense. And it makes sense to stage these correctly. Um, but if you are doing just narrative nonfiction or those kind of things, um, it's not as common that you're going to get a multiple book deal. A lot of times they're going to want to test the waters with you
Mhm.
to see how you, because you're unproven. They don't know,
Right.
like, are you going to be fun to work with? Or are you going to just be a jerk? Right? Because they're expecting you to be easy to work with. And you're hoping that they're going to like you too. So, um, unless in fiction, if there's a series that you have already been working on, that's Bible study where you can show it's a series of things, it's great. If you're doing narrative nonfiction, Christian life, women's issues, you can go in and pitch a series and they may or may not. Also, if you're a first time author, it's hard enough to create a good book proposal for one book.
You really want to do that for three or whatever?
Three, and so, and do you want to obligate yourself to the same publisher?
Right.
So
Right.
I
You may find that they're a pain to work with and you really don't want to do that. And yeah.
don't know if that answered your question, Kathy, or not, but if you're first time, especially nonfiction, it,
Probably not. Mhm.
just think through it fully about
Mhm.
what that might mean to try to pitch. Doesn't mean that you can't pitch. And usually at the end of a book proposal, you're going to say, this is the first of many ideas I have on da, 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 because you want them to think that you have a shelf life beyond one book.
Right. So what about the relationship with literary agents? So most traditional publishers require that you first get an agent, which is a hoop to jump through all in and of itself. What about that relationship? Like what makes a good relationship with an agent? Should you be like, I don't know, relationally compatible? Like, is this your friend? Is it like, what's that relationship look like?
And a relationship with an agent will probably never be your best bud, um, because they are also in it. Their goal is to get you sold into publishing houses, and that is their goal. Um, a literary agent worth their time, and that they're taking a risk on you too. They're signing and they're hoping because, and if you don't get an advance, then they don't get money, so they're going to want an advance, so they get a chunk of the change because you won't get it all. They'll get a piece, um, but they're going to try to make sure that you've negotiated the best and most lucrative business deal as well because it definitely benefits them. Um, but I have a lot of friends that work with a lot of different literary agents, and I can say in watching that a good literary agent is going to be there to provide not only critique of your book proposal and not only to just to put your book proposal out to their slate of publishing houses, but that literary agent is going to be there to walk with you through what makes a good book proposal. They're going to walk with you through your ideas of, I have this idea, it's a new idea for a book. They're going to be brave enough to tell you if something needs to change, or if the idea that you have maybe isn't quite solidified enough and it's not time.
Mm-hmm.
A good literary agent to me, and maybe some other folks, but a good literary agent to me would be there also post the book, pre the next book proposal, checking in, being available to talk. If a literary agent, if their goal is to pitch you, but they're not there to walk with you through difficult times or times when you're saying, I have an idea, but it's not fully formed, and I'd love to talk more about how it might work. If that agent is not there to truly be an agent, right? That agent's purpose is to equip you
Mm-hmm.
to benefit yourself and the publishing industry and them. They should have a more dynamic relationship with you. And if they're not, and if they just show up to say, thank you for your book proposal, here's how we need to change your book proposal, I am pitching your book proposal, and then they go silent, and then they say, well, you haven't pitched anything for a while, so are you still valid? That's probably not a great agent relationship.
So you want kind of a tough love coach sort of
It would be
person.
that agent to be a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
to be a coach, but they do have to be incredibly honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Need an agent to be so honest with you about what you're thinking, because they also have a better idea of if that great idea that's in your heart and head has a place in a broader market,
Mm-hmm.
and does it have a place in a world that does not know you at all.
Sure.
And you know what? If you write to a world that knows you, or write to a world that is adjacent to what knows you, that's okay. And that is as meaningful as putting your words out to a world, a universe that does not know who you are and may not care. Because then it's just okay, is my book, is the title grabbing your attention? Is the book color grabbing your attention? Because I am one of many on a shelf, and I'm just praying that you see my book or the spine of my book. Because you don't even really get to see the cover of my book, you just get to see a little spine. And so, uh, again, there's a beautiful place for publishing. There's a beautiful place for big things, but there's also incredible need for things that feel more communal, and words that feel more communal, and studies that feel more communal.
So what about people who are not considering traditional publishing? They're like, yeah, that's not something I want to do right now. Are there still things that traditional publishers expect that would be helpful for us to know regarding the business and publishing of a book? Like, how would that apply to someone who's not looking at traditional publishing?
You want to, and hybrid publishers a lot of times will provide some of the benefits of traditional publishing. Again, you're paying them for their service. But the editing, formatting, pagination, we'll just have that like a little tiny shirt, and it'll be tone on tone. It'll just say, like one of those. But especially if you are self-publishing, there are things that I encourage anybody I am mentoring to do. I go, I don't care if you don't plan to pitch your idea to anybody, write a book proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Write one out, because that book proposal, not only um, it determines, first of all, if you've got content that is actually enough content to go into some sort of a book. It'll uh, Writing a book proposal will really clearly help you see, is this a book, or wait, this is, you know what? This could actually live as a Bible study. This could live as a digital course. It doesn't have to be in written format between covers in order to still have value. Or it is great, but it's not 50,000 or 55,000 of something. It's, I have 35,000 of really good, not 55,000. And if I try to put in an additional 20,000 words,
It's probably not going to be good.
size of a book, is that really beneficial? But a book proposal, also, the purpose of a book proposal is not to first of all, it makes a roadmap. And
Mhm.
you need a roadmap. You need a clear promise and a clear premise. And then you need the way to get from the premise to actually making good on the promise of the book. A book proposal, also a great book proposal, will ask you to write down where you think the reader is in their life right now. Why in the world would they even walk up to the doorway of your book? And then after they read your book, what is going to be different about their life? What are they going to think, know, feel, or do that's different? Stephanie Duncan Smith, who is an incredible author and editor and stuff and writes. She has a newsletter called The Slant Letter where she shares so much. One of the best things that I ever heard her say is, she said, especially those of you who are faith writers, she said, in the Old Testament, the temple, the door that the priest walked in was not the door they walked out, because there was beautiful symbolism that said, I'm going to walk into the temple in the presence of God. And when I walk out, it's because I'm walking out a different way than I came, because something has happened. And as a faith writer, even if you're writing about food, even if you're writing about business deals, you have this unique opportunity to say, my goal is that you walk in, but you walk out a different door, because something has happened in you emotionally or mentally or educational, whatever it might be, but you're walking out the door different. And so part of that book proposal asks you, what kind of door are they going to walk in? What kind of condition are they when they walk in? And then what transformation is going to happen when they walk back out? And a book proposal requires that you tell your story of what the book is going to be about in short form. Because that's another, oh my gosh, to say, okay, what is the essence of this book? And if you can't clearly state what the essence of the book is, it might be a sign that you're not ready to write the book.
Mhm.
Proposal also requires you to do is to look at yourself in the mirror and deem yourself as the authoritative voice to share the story. It's not just this book is for this time, which a book proposal should show that this subject matter is for this time, because this person, because of this time, are going to walk in and they're going to come out transformed. And of anybody that could write this, here's why I'm uniquely qualified to be your guide in this journey on this book. So you have to talk about yourself. You have to explain why it matters. And you have to also share the promise of how that book is going to come to market and what you're going to do to provide support to that book. A book proposal also requires that you write down people that you know that you think are cool that might endorse your book. These are all things that even in self-publishing, you need to be asking yourself these questions. And if I think all of us have read excellent books that are self-published, and also we have also read books that are self-published that you go, oh, sweetie love. Could somebody just, had you just sat down with somebody and not ask your mom, right? Had you just sat down and had somebody scrutinize this, you might have found that you, it's beautiful words, poetic words and stuff, and it's going nowhere, or it's going in a million directions. Or it's so personal that I, who does not know you personally, I can't relate.
Mhm.
And so that's why, gosh, a good book proposal for anybody at any time is a smart move. And then to make sure you have bona fide, legitimate people who know how to edit and are not afraid of editing your words. And I promise you, if you look at that person, and this is what I did on developmental editing, I said, I got my developmental edits back. And I looked at it because I had everybody like, oh my gosh, it's like cutting your baby in pieces. I mean, they were like, it's the worst. It's the worst. It's so sad. And I thought, I kept looking and I would look at the edit and I'd say, change this. And I'd look and I'd go, does it advance the narrative? No, they're absolutely right. X. Does it advance the narrative? No, you're absolutely right. X. Does it advance the narrative? It does, but I've not made it clear enough. Okay. And so I stepped away from my personal, it's my baby, and I stepped into, okay, if this is their responsibility and this is what's important to them, then I'm going to view it from their perspective. And so it was great. And the relationship was not tense. It didn't feel bad because, like, no, their best interest is getting a book that you want to read all the way to the very end of the book. And I want people to read my book from the beginning to the end too. So I'm going to trust them. They know what they're doing. I'm going to trust them. And then when it came to technical editing, I had words and things that were, because my book talks about women from all over the world, there were things that I had to explain to the technical and copy editor because they would go, this doesn't make sense. And I go, I'm sorry, that word is in patois. And so I'll clarify to make sure that it's not bad grammar. It is a Creole language. So please don't try to fix my sentence because I'm quoting a person who's speaking in Creole. And so, but having a technical editor, somebody that makes sure that you don't miss a word or again, leave out a letter that turns a good word into a not great word. Those things are important and you need to invest time. And then you need to have somebody. Don't go it alone on trying to create and lay out your own book. You need a human that does that and prides themselves on how well they do it. And so to find somebody, and that's another thing, you can see when a self-published book has been homemade, and you can see when a published book has this unique quality to it that when it is put up against a traditionally published book, that quality is the same.
Mhm.
And so expect to have to spend some money, expect to have it take longer. There's a reason why it takes 2 years for a traditionally published book to be traditionally published. And yes, you were part of many books that are happening. And I remember that I was so proud. I got my manuscript done early and I sent it in like a week and a half early. And then the developmental editor goes, that's great. I have you scheduled for. And she gave me a date. I went, are you serious? I got it too early because I'm an overachiever. Aren't you proud? But she had me slated for a particular amount of time in a particular window of time. And they were down to, you will not hear from me again until this time.
Mhm.
Because they knew exactly how much time it took and how much time they could invest. But we need to give self-publishing time.
Yeah.
We need to give it time.
So Kathy is asking, do most traditional publishers only deal with agented authors? I believe that is true. Is that?
It is. Most do, but sometimes, and there are, just type in Christian traditional publishers in 2024, and you'll probably get like 12 different documents. Several of them are trying to get you to ultimately self-publish or use their hybrid publisher. That's okay. But there are some that will say who will take an unsolicited um, manuscript. And there are, even within a big publishing house that may have several different imprints, some of them will take unsolicited more than others. A small publishing house, I have a lot of friends that have published with small houses that if I ever did it again, I would say there are things that I have learned. Like I would not poo-poo a small house, a small imprint. And I would probably not fight so hard for an advance. Because those are the things that can also, that advance, and we'll talk about that on Thursday, if the relationship does not turn out exactly like you think it is, and your books don't sell 1 million books. Um, but a lot of those, I've had friends that have not been agented that have been able to work through smaller shops.
Sure.
Because that relationship, they're accessible.
Mhm.
I was with Baker. I was with Revell, who is an imprint of Baker, who has 7 imprints. And so I was with a big publishing, big, which is small in comparison to the big 5 of Tyndall and Random Penguin, Random House, and all of those. But still, that group was not accessible, as opposed to a Leafwood, who is out of Abilene Christian University, publishes exceptionally beautiful work. But they're not cutting advance checks. Their risk is doing the work for you, but they're not cutting big advance checks. They're doing beautiful work for you too. So is an agent a great thing? Yes, an agent is a great person to have, especially if you do want to pitch to bigger shops and stuff. Is an agent absolutely always necessary? No. And there are different ways. Other folks have been like, they have been solicited. It's been, you have a post and it goes viral. It's on a great topic. And then it catches the eye of somebody. And then somebody says, hey, have you ever considered? You have a major life event that just happens to coincide with a hot topic. You might be solicited. Those are rare. Those are rare. And so, is an agent good to have? Yeah. Is an agent always, always, always necessary? No. You just have to do a whole lot more work.
So this is really helpful. So as we wrap up here, what are you going to share with us on Thursday?
On Thursday, we are going to talk. We're going to talk shop, and I will say this: it will not be a bash session for traditional publishing, nor will it be a glory session. We are going to talk about what to expect in a traditional publishing relationship, what a traditional publisher, everything that they bring to bear, what they don't bring to bear, what they expect of you, what they'll never promise you. And then we'll talk about if it goes well and that relationship continues to blossom. And then what happens if it doesn't? And when I say it doesn't go well, I'm not saying that you have a falling out with that publishing house. What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, you are signing a contract for the sale of books. And there is an expectation of how many books need to sell. And what happens if that expectation is not met in the window of time that you think it should give? And that window of time, to let you know, is shortening. And we will talk specifically about stories that have happened this last like 12 months in multiple public traditional publishing houses, with that window of time being narrowed. And then what do you do? What rights do you have, and that kind of stuff. I want to talk about it all because I want you to go in with eyes wide open. I want you to go in knowing how to better negotiate. I want you to go in knowing, okay, I also know fully the risks that are being taken.
That sounds great.
And I can make a decision. Is this really the route I want to go? Maybe there's a different route I want to go.
Mhm,
But I want to be wise about
mhm.
it. And
That sounds great. I look forward to it. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Ronnie. Thanks, ladies, for being here. And we look forward to hearing you on Thursday.
sounds good. I look forward to seeing you guys.
All right. See ya.